Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you my personal favorite tips on how to extend your music. Say you've got like a little 4-bar loop that you like, but you don't know how to go and make that into a more full arrangement. I'm going to be sharing my favorite methods in doing so, and hopefully this helps you out. Especially if maybe you're in a position right now where you're struggling with some writer's block. This is typically how I go about extending some very short ideas and getting something a lot more presentable. Now, getting straight into it here, I'm going to demonstrate what, possibly the most minimal instance of my music could look like, and then we'll go about how I extend that. So I'm going to take this sample here, just a little bell stab that I got, and we're going to write just a very short kind of like ARP or melody, and then I'll explain where I'm going to go from there. Okay, so we've already got something. This is the most minimal melody ever, just a couple of notes, but this is just going to be something that I extend to be a 4-bar loop. And this is basically just going to be a foundation. We're going to build an entire track out of something that, as I say right now, sounds just like this. So before we do anything, we are going to make this kind of more of a background element, because that's where I want this to sit. So we're going to do some processing. I know with a sound like this, I really like throwing on disperser, followed by a nice big reverb to really set it in the back, and then lastly gain reduction, one of my favorite compressors. This will make everything nice and even, and right now it sounds like this. So we've really put this in the background now. We're also going to clean it up a little bit with an EQ. This is just to make it sit exactly where I want it. But now we are ready to begin writing. So say, for example, you have a little melodic idea, something just like this. You're probably wondering, where do I go from here? How do I make this good? And step one is finding, this kind of goes hand in hand, either a bass line or some chords to follow whatever you've put down. So we're going to open up a new instance of really any VST. I'm using Serum. You could use Vital. It's a free alternative. And we're just going to get a nice little sound here that's going to end up being our chords. So this is mainly just play this and kind of just get a feel for what you want. There's no right or wrong answer because there's so many different combinations of chords you can come up with. As long as you know they're in key and sound right, you're good. So I'm just going to hit some notes while I listen to this until I find where I want like our first chord to start on. That's moody, not what I'm going for, so we're gonna keep looking. That's kind of what I want. So we're gonna get that down before we forget it. Now we have what's gonna be our chords. Before we even play that, we're gonna make it a little bigger, so get some additional notes going here. Something like this. Right now it's all major. I think we want that to be minor. Correct. Those sound right to me. So now you see we took our ARP from the beginning of this, and we've already got chords that are going to follow it. These are the most basic form. We're actually going to take some time now, edit some voicing, maybe add some additional notes, and make it sound good before we take another listen to it. Right. Added in some notes, it's sounding pretty nice now. Now we need to edit the patch itself, because right now this is incredibly boring. This is going to be a house track, so we're going to give this some rhythm now, because right now it's completely flat. So I'm thinking do something like this. Make it wide. This is also going to want some delay for additional rhythm. So we're going to get that in now. Already good. Get some chorus going after that delay. Okay, let's give this a listen with our ARP from the beginning now, so we could take a listen and see where we've gotten so far. To be louder. That's sounding really good to me now. So you see we've got our kind of melody that we're going to be working with, and we've got chords to support it. We're nowhere near done though. Still got to build this out because this is just going to start us off here. I'm going to put this in its own separate pattern just for workflow reasons. I think the way this track is going to start, it's going to be just our ARP, so for the first 4 bars. And then, come the beginning of here, we're going to introduce our chords. We could do that with the saw patch we've made, or we can experiment. I'm thinking strings might sound pretty good, so we're going to add a new instrument. FL Studio has nice built-in strings that I love using. We're going to throw those in on their own mixer channel and put them into their own pattern as well. And we can pick and choose if we want one of these or both of these. I think we're going to want both, but we do need to edit this a bit. There are notes that kind of stop and restart, like you see in between these here. And instead what I'm going to do is delete the duplicates and just extend them to make the strings sound a little more natural. We'll also throw some reverb on it and just make everything last longer, so that way it doesn't really stop as much, because I want it to just sound more real. Also helps if you find a note that can be held the entire time. Perfect. What could also be cool here is if we begin to foreshadow a bass line that will end up taking prominence in the next section, which will probably be a drop. So what I'm going to do, just in advance of doing that, I'm going to EQ out anything that might conflict bass-wise. You see, we've already we went from one element, just being the ARP, then we added a saw patch for chords, strings, and now we're going to work on a bass patch. So we already have a lot more melodic elements that are going to be in this. There we go. Okay, so I'm thinking we're going to want maybe an 808 for this, because I'm picturing a really minimal house drop where we go back to that ARP, but really dry, instead of incredibly wet like we have now. So let's go to this pack, grab an 808. That one's nice. Probably going to listen to our chords while I do this. Make sure it's set like on the right note there. Just this. And let's get to writing. So the reason I put this here with my chords is that way when I go into piano roll, I can see them. Now, we already know what our bass is going to be. Like, you know, starts here. That's obviously way too low. We're going to do that like 2 octaves up over here. But we can see what our bass notes are. I can already tell you, though, something I'm noticing, and this is a little off topic, but our bass notes, specifically, you know, this one, really low. And we could do with upping the key of this track a little bit to make sure that's not a problem. So that's something I'm going to do right now. There we go, we went up 5. You know what, this actually is, now that I'm thinking about it, pretty important, because sometimes if you've listened to your track a while, you might get bored of it. Changing the key is a very good way to sort of refresh yourself, because this is going to sound considerably different now. So we're just going to move everything up 5, so that way nothing is out of key when we press play. We don't want that. Okay, so that now sounds like this. Okay, needs bass. Let's get to writing. So I don't want it to just hold the same thing the entire way through. So we're gonna do like octave jump, stuff like that. Make it more interesting, some slides. Something like that, I don't know. There we go. So we have a bass, which now on its own sounds like this. Perfect. We're now ready to begin a new section of our track, which is going to be the drop. So we're going to throw this in on its own pattern now that we've written it and don't need to see it with those chords anymore, like so. What I actually think is going to happen, we're going to cut the sub from this. That way the impact is even more intense when the drop happens. Okay, so we'll turn that off when the drop happens. So what we're going to do now is, first off, clone our cool little reverb ARP, make a new pattern of it. That's going to go on a different mixer channel. Instead of being reverbed like this, it's going to be incredibly dry. Still going to compress it nice. But it's going to end a lot more abruptly. It's going to be super short. Something like that. Let's play that with the bass line so you can get a feel for what we're doing here. Right, a fun drop like that could be really interesting. Gotta see how it sounds with drums and stuff when we get to that in a bit. That, if you do like really cool reverb automation and stuff, or maybe like a nice little stutter tremolo effect or something, probably gonna sound really cool. So something I'm gonna do actually is set up sidechain points, just because this is gonna add like a nice little groove. We might even turn on some swing, just to make everything a little off the grid and cool. Something like this. Get this going. This will sound really bouncy in a second. It's gonna be interesting. So we're gonna set up our own dedicated sidechain channel and point everything to it that needs to be. So right now, honestly, everything, because there's nothing in here that I don't want sidechained at this current moment. No drums or anything yet. So we'll get to that. And make sure that our kick sidechain trigger, which is already set up in my template, is pointed to that. From there, I'm going to open up ProMB. This is all technical stuff, not really important to the video. That's why I'm just speeding over it, really. But getting this set up, because it is very important. You don't want to add your drums and not do this, otherwise it'll sound scary. Okay, I'm going to do that little reverb thing before I forget, because I think it'll be really cool to make this super wet towards the end of the loop and then back to dry for the second repetition. Perfect. Okay, now we're ready to add some drums to this. Probably even some risers for this build-up as well. Make it more interesting. Want a cool little short house one. Why not? That's really tiny. Maybe cut the drums there. I think we'll keep it just a kick for the beginning of that, and, you know, as this gets longer, introduce things. So, like, here, just a nice pop loop that I reach for, because this will add variation to the second portion of our drop. Like, first it's just going to hit just all minimal, and then it's going to open up with some layers here. Maybe we'll even throw in those chords from before. I'm going to do the patented house thing where you just move the kick one over for the second bit, so it comes in. At the 808, because it kind of acts as a kick if it's not there. We don't want that. That will sound interesting once we get some layers going. So let's get those chords in, because I do want them. That's sounding interesting. Also going to grab a riser from here too, just while we're at it. Something to let you know, hey, this is a build-up, by the way. So, do that. Set that up so it goes in. That desperately needs an impact. I think I'll do that cool little grab a crash, split it after a second, just so you have the initial impact of something being there, and then change it into an impact. You need to be louder. Yeah, so this is super minimal. This isn't really, like, fully realized yet. Like, I do think this drop sounds basic. But you could already see, when we started this off, I mean, we had nothing, but the first thing we wrote was this. And now we have intro, which is that, a cool little build-up section, a drop, second part of the drop that has more impact, and you ready for this? We're going to add something else that's going to make this even longer. All that's going to be, we're going to take our drums as they are, do something like this, grab our sidechain, get these going back in. Typically after a drop, you want like a nice little breakdown section that's not too intense. So we're going to grab our bass line, throw that over everything. So after the drop, it's going to go into this. Obviously, very empty, but in house that kind of works. If you want to make that a little better though, throw in your chords. That's pretty cool. You throw in your strings. I like it. Possibilities here are endless, and that's really easy. You see, it's just a matter of, if you have a lead line, a melody, whatever, get some chords going. From there, you could easily figure out a bass line. And here we repurposed our ARP into a drop lead, and suddenly we have something that could very easily turn into a full track. Obviously, you'd want to go a lot more into detail with backing elements. I've made this really quickly just for the sake of a tutorial video here. But from here, you know, you make every section how long it's actually supposed to be, do whatever you gotta do. Once you have like a breakdown at the end of your drop, you could go into build up 2, drop 2, then throw together an outro. Suddenly you have a full song. It's really easy. I hope this has helped you out. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other songwriting tips like this. Let me know what you think of this track as well. Drop a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for future content, and I will catch you in the next one.